It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Lazy investing is the best investing. And that sounds so contrarian. You would think that the harder you work, because I'm a hard work advocate. I feel like sometimes you sleep the best after you've done a hard day of work. If you're splitting firewood, if you're working out in the yard, you sleep like a baby that night because you felt like you put a good day of work in. How is it possible that with money, being lazy actually gets rewarded?
Is a benefit. Yeah.
So let's talk about this. I mean, one of the first things we talk about is active management versus passive or index investing. You would think this person over here who's paid handsomely for what they do would totally do better and be rewarded for their hard work versus just buying the index, because indexes are boring. Unfortunately, the data does not support that.
Yeah, so when we look at the SPIVA study from 2020, they look at, how often do index funds beat their active manager counterparts. It was amazing to find that when you look at large U.S. companies, 87.7% of active managers underperform their stated index, meaning that those funds, those dollars deployed, would have been better off over this 15-year time period that they're looking at just buying the index. Yep. There's a very small portion. So then you think, okay, well, what about like mid-cap? Surely smaller size companies do better. Mid-cap managers, 82.2% underperformed their index over that 15-year period. Small cap managers, it was also 82% of active managers underperformed the index. And then when you look at international, so non-US, non-domestic investments, 87.8% of active managers underperform their index over a 15-year period. So we are of the opinion that rather than trying to beat the market, there's nothing wrong with just being the market, buying into the market, using index funds, and capturing the growth in those asset classes.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of common sense if you think about what's the why on this. Index funds are incredibly affordable and cheap. I mean, they're practically free on their internal expenses. If you're running an active management shop, you have trading costs, you've got to pay the managers, and then they're not even as tax efficient. That's the other thing, because since turnover creates more taxable transactions, index funds just don't have that much change going on, because once again, lazy investing can be the best investing. It just works out in the long term that the cost savings, the tax efficiency just turns out to be that extra oomph that gives you the better performance.
Now, so Brian, I can already hear the folks out there saying, no. Hey guys, I got to figure it out. I know how to read it. I know how to read the tea leaves. I can hear some of our dear friend audience people reach out and say, no, you can pick the active man. You got to do a little bit of work. You just got to be really good. So we said, okay, let's operate under that premise. And let's assume that you're the best investor ever. And not only can you figure out what to invest in, the asset class to use, you can figure out the exact perfect time to put your dollars to work.
Well, what I love about this illustration we're about to go over is that we've done on the other shows the world's worst investor, where we took somebody who actually bought on the tippity-top peak of the market, and then we showed how long-term, even if you just stayed consistent, you would be rewarded, because once again, lazy investing, you couldn't outsmart yourself. But a lot of you people, a lot of our financial mutants are smart. Because you'll say, gosh, I wish you guys would have upside down that and showed what happens if somebody really does have that magical crystal ball where they could invest at the bare bottom of the market. Because that's what I think a lot of us try to do when we're doing this internal struggle of, do we time the market? Like, markets are overvalued right now. I hear that constantly. So why don't we wait until we can buy low and then sell high later? That is always the emotional fear and greed battle that's going on, is let's just wait until it's cheaper. So what if you actually had a superpower let you buy at the dead bottom of the market? Would that actually help you?
So let's look at it. In 1980, according to the United States Social Security Administration, we know that the average income was $12,513. And because all of you out there are financial mutants, we know that you would have been saving 25% of your gross income, or about $260.70 a month. And you recognize, I'm going to wait for the bottom and I'm going to hit the nail on the head. So I'm going to invest at the bottom of Black Monday. I'm going to invest in October of 1990. I'm going to do October 9 of 2002 at the bottom of the dot-com bubble. I'm going to catch the Great Recession at the bottom on March 9th, 2009. And then I'm even going to capitalize on COVID, the March 23rd to 2020. I'm going to get on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up cash. And when I hit these dates, I'm going to invest all that cash that I've built up. So if you look at it, we build up cash until October of 87, and then we invest it all. And then we start building cash again, and then we invest it all. We keep building and building and building and building and invest it. And this is what we found. If you are the absolute best market timer out there, you would have saved over this time period $129,308. But because you are such an astute investor, you turn that $129,000 into almost $1.8 million over that 40-year time frame.
So, I mean, look at the visual on this. Remember, I talk about investing is walking up a mountain with a yo-yo. Because that yo-yo is going up and down in the short term, but you're always walking up a hill. But this is even better in the fact that you were finding the low points on those hills, and that's when you were deploying and investing the money. That's pretty cool. This is what you think the superpower is valuable, but guys, this is what's crazy to me. When we did these data, I was like, wait a minute, go back. I want to see that number one more time. Is because you would think this is a valuable superpower.
Sure.
I mean, you could essentially conquer the world if you had this. This is like Back to the Future. You know the sports almanac. You know all the plays to make. But is it valuable? Because, I mean, right now there are people sitting on the sidelines because they think the market's overvalued. What if they were building up cash to do this exact same strategy where when the market goes down and reaches the bottom of the cycle of emotions and when markets are cheap, they're going to go deploy those resources? Is that actually valuable? I think the answer will actually shock you.
Yeah, so we said, what if you had another investor who just did it systematically? They were boring, they were lazy, and they said, you know what, okay, I'm going to save my $260.70 a month. But rather than caring about the bottom of the market or the top of the market, I'm just going to invest every single month. No matter where the market is, I'm just going to put my money to work every single month. Well, what we found is that person would have saved the same $129,308, but instead of only having $1.8 million, the lazy, boring, non-active, uninvolved investor has almost $2.1 million.
I need people to understand this. This is not a dollar difference. This is an incremental decision difference, not a money difference. They put the exact same dollars to work. It's just one had the superpower of knowing when markets were going to be down, investing their money on those dates. The other one just said, set it, forget it, automatic for the people. I'm going to make my investment process not matter. If it's raining outside, if bad things are going on in another part of the world, I don't care. I'm going to buy the same time each month. And somehow, that is more powerful. The consistency, the automation of the behavior, the habit of the behavior is more powerful than the superpower of knowing when markets are going to be at the bottom.
So what's the practical application here? We think you really ought to know where you are in your wealth building journey. You know, I have folks all the time ask me, hey, you're a financial advisor. How'd you do last month? What'd your market got beat up last week? How'd you do? I have no idea. I'll be honest, because I just do not stay tuned in to my performance because I know that with my timeline, I care way more about how much I am putting to work than what those army of dollar bills are doing this day or this week or this month. So you need to understand where you are in your financial life cycle and what things you should be focused on.
Yeah, and practical application, know where you are in your journey. In the beginning, it's just like Bo said, building up your critical mass of assets. And I've talked about this in several times in examples. $500,000, market makes 20%. You've just added $100,000.
Big money.
When you have $50,000, you make 20%, you make $10,000. There's a huge difference between 10 versus 100 because you're probably replacing years of living expenses at that point. And that's why we talk about if you know where you are in the journey, in the beginning, index target retirement funds, all you have to answer is two questions is how much can I save? When do I need it? It does all the heavy lifting for you. Once you get over $500,000 to $600,000 in assets, there's some additional things that you want to start thinking about. And that's what I like. You still can use index funds, just like you use the index target retirement funds. But now you might want to get a little more diversification. Buy those funds individually so you can do loss harvesting. You can give appreciated securities to charity. You can also do tax location. There's all kind of fun things, but don't seek that complication out until you get that critical mass built up.
That's exactly right.